Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions, utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
It's now week 8 of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, and we tied last week. So we're still level. Last week we were all level in our records. And now, after both having bad weeks, I mean, what a week of games. It was a tough week with some tough games, but in general, like I said, things that we thought maybe would have been locks panned out the completely opposite direction. So I went 5-8 and you went 5-8. So we're knotted up at 62-44 overall. What a tough week, but we look to bounce back as we move to week 8. But Vince, welcome in.
Yeah, I did not see that coming, to say the least. Anytime you go 5-8, like, holy atrocious, right? You know, I was hoping at the end of the week to pick up the Sunday nighter and then pick up the Monday nighter. And then when the Monday nighter went south last night, I was like, this is just caps off a terrible week. But a lot of good things, though, at least for me personally. Last week, one of my favorite high schools, St. Ignatius, won. Ohio State won. The Browns won. So a lot of good things in the football world just didn't really surround our picks. And fans out there, we had a tremendous reaction to last week's show. Really the most viewed show we've ever done. So we want to thank you for that. We're going to pose another question to you this week. And then Cole and I will take a stab at answering this at the end of the night. What grade would you give Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson? Going to give you some stats here. In 6 starts, he is 6-4. The Cleveland Browns, I should say, are 6-4 in his 10 starts. So sorry about that. 10 total starts for Deshaun Watson. 6 wins, 4 losses. Clearly, you could say really maybe the Tennessee game this year and the Washington game last year, really the only 2 wins he's been responsible for. But regardless, 6 wins and 4 losses, not bad. And also 11 touchdowns total with 8 interceptions. He has more touchdowns than interceptions. 165 of 277 on the attempts for 1,785 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. So you break down those stats, and we will a little bit later on through 10 games. Not nearly as bad as everybody's kind of reacting to right now. But again, Cole and I are interested to hear what you think. Go ahead and leave your grade for quarterback Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns in that comment section. With that being said, Cole, take us away.
Well, let's go from talking about the current Browns quarterback to the former Browns quarterback. The Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers face off in Thursday Night Football. And Baker Mayfield, the downhill slide has begun. We knew it would happen here at some point, but it has finally begun to happen. Had a good start to the year. Credit to him. Credit to his teammates around him as well. But we're starting to see the skid. Hasn't performed too well the last couple of weeks. And the Buccaneers have lost each of the last 2 weeks. Now they're going against the Buffalo Bills, a Buffalo Bills team who they didn't perform well against the Patriots. They probably should have won that game against the Patriots. They end up losing. Credit to Mac Jones and the Patriots on that final game-winning drive, getting it done. So Buffalo's reeling. They're a team that was excellent for the past couple years, has been looked at as a contender the past couple of years, and now they're in a position where they've hit their struggles. And Josh Allen, in his press conference, seemed pretty down, but was saying, hey, we don't know what the issue is. We got to really figure this thing out and get things clicking. So now they go up against the Buccaneers, and I think in this one, Buffalo's going to have a bounce back game. I expect that this is one that Buffalo's going to be able to win on Thursday night. Thursday night is traditionally low scoring, which I think Buffalo can certainly put up a ton of points. But I also believe the Buccaneers, they have a good defense still. The Bills certainly have injuries defensively, but I think they have enough weapons on defense to get after Baker, make things difficult for him. So I'm going to say Buffalo, again, they win this one. They get back on the right track. I have them winning this game 23-17 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Vince.
Well, probably not gonna go as far as to give a score prediction, but I think maybe we need to take a little bit of a step back on the Buffalo hype, or at least myself. I had them going to the Super Bowl as a sure thing this year. So far, they've been very concerning. A couple of those losses, you could call them fluke losses, one in London, one opening night of the season on prime time in a very hyped atmosphere there in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So definitely interesting what we've seen out of Buffalo thus far. I do expect them to bounce back here. This should be a very winnable game. Normally, I would say, they could blow out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but both teams have been so sporadic this season. I'm just going to go ahead and play it safe and take Buffalo on Thursday night.
So we're both going with Buffalo on Thursday night. That was short. That was sweet. Pretty easy there. And we can move on to Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football, a matchup where two teams come in with not the best records, right? 2 wins apiece, the Chargers and the Bears. Now, Vince, in this one, can the Bears go on a 2-game win streak, even without Justin Fields potentially for another week in a row? Or will the Chargers bounce back after their loss to the Chiefs that was actually fairly close until the latter stretch of that game?
The Las Vegas Raiders are terrible. So, unless they're 100% healthy, the Raiders, they has driven me nuts this season. They shouldn't have lost to the Bears. They got destroyed by the Bears, and it's mind-blowing. Brian Hoyer needs to hang it up. He's been done for years. Found it comical, all the celebrating he was doing when they beat the Patriots a few weeks back, even though he had nothing to do with it. But regardless, so that being said, transferring to what the Bears did, right? The Bears still had to go out there with an undrafted quarterback and win, and they did. So more power to them. But that being said, I think their luck runs out this week. Chargers should win. Winnable game for the Chargers. They've looked good at times this season, but they're going to need to put together 4 straight quarters. People will recall they had won 2 straight before losing on Monday night to Dallas, and then they lost this past week to Kansas City. This is a huge step down in competition for the Chargers. You go from the Cowboys to the Chiefs, now all the way down to the Bears without Justin Fields. This should be an extremely winnable game.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I agree with you. I think it should be winnable. Almost surprising that the Bears won that game against the Raiders. A Bears team that they've had a really topsy-turvy, interesting season. And I think most people a couple weeks ago would never have expected them to have 2 wins at this point. But they do. And they even got a win with the backup quarterback. Now they go up against the Chargers team who has underperformed. Again, we keep saying it year after year after year. They're underperforming. But they're more healthy this year, I'd say, than last year. But they still have been nicked up a little bit. They still have some of their injuries. They have some of the same things plaguing them. Brandon Staley at coach, right? Doesn't help them at all. Same issues for the Chargers. That being said, they're better than this Bears team. They should win against this Bears team. And I do think they get it done. 27-20. Might not be a huge blowout here. But even if it's a 1-score game, the Chargers are significantly than the Bears, especially without Fields out there on the field. So like I said, I think Los Angeles should win this one. That's 2 games in a row to start this week that you and I are on the same page. We've picked the same team, Vince.
I'm going to say this too because I forgot. With the Chargers, they were close in both those games. Both those games between the Cowboys and the Chiefs, very, very winnable. You and I both, over the years, have always seemed to pick the Chargers to win that vaunted Thursday night game. They play the Chiefs every year. It felt like since we've been doing this show, right? This week they finally put that game on a Sunday, and yet again, the Chargers were right there. So I think they're getting better. I think they're getting closer. The last thing I'll say about them, you mentioned Staley. I think he'd be a hell of a coordinator. He'd be a good coordinator. But when it comes to the overall decision-making of a team, when to go for 2 points, when to go for a field goal, when to go for it. I don't like what he's doing there. So much like Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland for a little bit there, some of these guys just seem like they're meant more so to be a coordinator.
That's fair. That's very fair. And I think he's been given a long leash for the last couple of years and given every opportunity possibly. And I think this year has to be the end of his time as the head coach of the Chargers, because I think they have too much talent on that team, despite a loaded AFC, to just continue to have losing seasons when it's a team that you look at them on paper, they should easily have maybe 10 wins, 9 wins at least. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get there this year based off of how they've started. So we look
In
to
the 4 years of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL prediction show, the Chargers continue to be that team that you and we want to root for, Cole. We really do. We're both big Herbert fans. It's frustrating. And I always go back, this was now going back 2+ years ago on Sunday Night Football to close the season, last game of the year. All they had to do was either win or tie against the Raiders. And they had the ball, and all they needed to do was run out the clock. It would have been a tie. It would have been the most fluke ending of all time. Would have knocked the Pittsburgh Steelers out of the playoffs. Staley does something stupid. Raiders get the ball back, pissed off. They go ahead, score, and win. It's just stupid things like that rob a guy like Justin Herbert, who, please correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say he's in his 4th season because I'm pretty sure he was a rookie the first year you and I started doing this. Mm-hmm. So here's a guy in Justin Herbert who has now played in one playoff game in his career. Doesn't look like they're going to head there this year unless they get it turned around. And the playoff game he was in last year, he was cruising. They should have won. Staley screwed that up too against Jacksonville. So I'm going to get down off my Staley kick here, but you hate seeing that.
You do. Tell you what, a team that collapsed this past week was our upset pick. Both of us picked the Lions to beat the Ravens. And Baltimore came back from London, and they put a beat down on the Lions, and the Lions did not look like the team we've seen all season. Now, Detroit has an opportunity to bounce back on Monday Night Football, and they have a matchup with the Las Vegas Raiders, who just lost to the Chicago Bears and were atrocious themselves. Difference is, I think the Raiders are actually a not-so-great team this year. Differences for the Lions, they're one of the best teams in the NFC. They just had a bad week. So Detroit, they're going to bounce back. Don't have a whole lot to say about this aside from whether Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy starting or whether David Montgomery comes back. They're going to find a way to run that football. Amon-Ra St. Brown is an excellent player. You have Sam Laporta at tight end, Jameson Williams stretching the field. Guys that I have talked about before. Defensively, I think they're going to step up after getting gashed by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who, again, we've both been a little bit critical, said that they're good, but didn't know if they were necessarily a perennial world beater. They played like it this past week, that's for sure. I think Detroit will comfortably win this one, 34-16, easily doubling up what the Raiders are going to be able to put on the board. So no question in my mind that Monday night's going to go the way of Detroit.
Yeah, Baltimore definitely got that London rub, right? You just talking about the Jacksonville London rub. Baltimore got some of that rub. So yeah, without a doubt, I think Detroit. I can't explain too much about it, but being banged up, whatever, maybe reading too many press clippings. It happens with a young team. Jared Goff, remember he was Jared Goff for a little bit there, and they just had a bad day, real bad day. So I want to say 2 things here. One, I think the Lions win comfortably. I agree with you that the Raiders are just they're so bad, and it's so frustrating because of the amount of talent that's on that offense. Plus, their defensive player, number 99, is just an absolute beast. His name's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't think of it right now.
I think you're talking 98 Max Crosby.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 98. Yeah, the guy with the tattoos. He's a beast. He's so good. But they have the talent in individual positions. They really do. No depth at quarterback. We saw that this past weekend, though. That being said, and I don't, you're gonna be like, what's he doing? Getting back to this again, but I have to mention this one thing. When I do my best picking, I pick the best team, right? Clearly, and I don't worry about streaks and record or like history of a rivalry type stuff. I finally tell myself just pick the best team. So I regret I want to say that I regret last Thursday night's pick because we talked about London just now with the Ravens, and right away it popped in my head, I should have just took the damn Jaguars. You know what I mean? No more of this road team traveling in 3 days to play on a Thursday night. Need to start picking the best teams. I'm putting this on record so I could go back and hold myself accountable for it. And you can see the fingers. I'm going to tell you to talk to my hands. But that was the thing. I just want to throw that out there. Last Thursday night game, man, just once I found out Trevor Lawrence was playing, I'm like, oh, doggone, here we go. So just funny with that London rub. But overall, again, this game, Detroit needs to win. Now, if they don't, they're in trouble. I'm sorry, but they need to win. They don't need to win big, but this is a game they need to win. If they drop another game, and all of a sudden now that division's topsy-turvy because I don't think Minnesota is a long shot like people think this week. In fact, it's dead even against Green Bay. So Minnesota right now and Green Bay are a dead even line. So very easily Minnesota could be 4-4, I think that is, or something like that. And yeah, I'm 4-4, and then Detroit loses, they'd be 5-3. It's a lot closer than we think right now if those things happen. Taking the Lions. I just used literally 6 minutes to pick the Lions, but there you go. And mentioned like 8 other teams while I did it.
Well, we can move to the lines, and it's a good segue as we move to our upset pick, though, and what we think will actually be the upset this week. And Vince, this is a week where there were a lot of games that were, right around that even line and so close. And so it made it tough to actually find the upset pick this week. But Vince, which direction are you going here?
So I'm pulling up my official upset picks here. The one I shall talk about on the show, actually, in fact, I'll give you 2 of them, but New Orleans over Indianapolis. 1 point spread the last I saw it. Yep, just double checking here. 2, 3, and 4 teams. It's a toss up. We have to pick one upset pick at least. And I think maybe the Colts just don't know how to close games out yet. They did it a few times earlier in the year. They handed that game to the Browns. We'll talk more about that later. Plus, the Saints are better with Alvin Kamara. I know they've lost 2 straight. I keep picking them. They keep losing. But I just feel like this might be the week where we see if this Saints team is really, truly going to contend for that, for that division there. Definitely didn't see them losing to Jacksonville like they did. They were down big in that game, came all the way back, had a chance really to send that in overtime. So I'm going to go ahead, flip a coin here. It's a 1 point spread. Took the Saints. And I did double down. That is my official upset pick. But I'll throw this one out there just for fun. The other upset pick I have, which, it's wild because this is a borderline team that we seem to every single week talk about. Actually, going to go with Tennessee at home, 2-4 to beat the 4-3 Atlanta Falcons. I know we both love Desmond Ridder. Last week he was atrocious. 3 turnovers in the red zone, all by him, all fumbles. They've only won 1 road game. Maybe they'll win 2, but the Tennessee Titans 2-1 is at home. So I'm going to pick Tennessee Titans one more time and see how it goes. They've kind of burned me so far this season, but going to roll that dice one more time. So going to go with the Saints over the Colts and Titans over the Falcons.
Well, Tennessee could potentially be without Ryan Tannehill. So, of course, that's something that to be of note because of his injury. Of course, Tennessee's thinking about trading Derrick Henry. So that tells you that they're potentially, looking to sink the ship a little bit, right? I think if you trade Derrick Henry, you're absolutely on the path to tanking and ending up with a top 5 pick because he's an excellent running back. But I think they're trying to see if they can get any value off of him. With the age he's at, he's going to start hitting his decline here. He's a guy who most people have already hit their decline by the point they've hit the age of Derrick Henry. But now time to see if you can get any value. So they're going to get some teams on the phone. We'll see if they can actually trade him away. But Tennessee, I'm going to say that they lose to the Falcons because I have to say this. The Falcons, they somehow won against the Bucs despite not playing that well. But they did enough defensively to stop Baker and that team as well that they ended up getting the win. You mentioned Ridder had some struggles. Ritter's had some really good moments where he had a couple 300-yard passing games, right? The best passing games in his career. A couple of mistakes here and there. He's still trying to get his footing and settle in. I think some of it is he needs some better weapons too. I think part of the biggest problem that hurt the Falcons in that game against the Buccaneers, despite winning, is The NFL is literally investigating the Falcons right now because of them not reporting that Bijan Robinson was injured or going to be out. So strange that, again, if somebody's sick and they have an illness and you find out they're not feeling well before the game, right? A lot of times you see that somebody's going to at least kind of go on the list where they're available, they're on the sideline, but they're questionable, right? There was no injury report. There was nothing that came out on Bijan Robinson. Then he doesn't play. Got his helmet on, pads on, he's on the sideline all game until he got one carry, like in the last 30 seconds of the game. So, of course, the NFL is investigating that because that messes things up not only for fantasy for people, but the sports books, right? Betting wise, a lot of people lost money, right, off of that. And so they're, of course, looking into what actually is the situation there and if there's any punishment that needs to be laid down for the Falcons and not reporting an injury, because their rules are, again, they're supposed to be reporting these types of things. They didn't. So without Bijan Robinson, one of the best weapons at the running back position, not only running the ball, but catching the ball already as a rookie in the NFL, that hurts your team in the red zone. Algiers good. They could bring in Cordero Patterson, who's had some good years, right? But it's not Bijan Robinson. It forces Ritter to have to throw the ball more. And when you say 3 fumbles, okay, most people are going to want to point the finger at the quarterback. Where I'm going to point the fingers there, what's the offensive line doing, right? If he's getting pressured so bad that he keeps getting stripped there in the red zone, give the guy some help, right? Block for him. Okay, clearly you're getting blown up by the defense there of the Buccaneers. Of course, Ritter's got to be at least at a little bit of fault there too. But just too many things that were concerning there for them. But I'm going to say this. The Falcons, even when they don't play great, they still managed to win ball games this year. I don't know, something about that team and how they can just continue to win. I think some of that is even when they make mistakes, they have some gamers on that team, some guys who can actually find ways to win ball games. And Ritter's one of them. Ritter just has a tendency to find ways to win even when he didn't play necessarily great. That whole roster clearly has kind of fallen into that trend. So I'm going to say the Falcons win. So I'm not on the same page with you there for that one.
Clearly.
I am on the same page with your Saints Colts upset. And that's where I'm going here as well. The Saints, they were one play away. A Foster Moreau touchdown in the corner of the end zone takes that to overtime against the Jags in a game that the Saints were trying to come back in. Now, the Colts have actually been good with Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew's, in my opinion, a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson. Richardson, of course, was named the starter because of the ceiling that he has, the athleticism he has. He was a top pick in the NFL draft, one of the top picks. So they had to go with him, right? The fan base would have been clamoring for him. The draft capital of taking him at that point requires you to really start him. Gardner Minshew doesn't add the dynamic rushing threat that we talked about last week, but he's a better passing quarterback. He played really well against the Cleveland Browns. And having Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss in the backfield as well helps add to their rushing threat. They have 2 physical runners, 2 excellent runners, and they're moving the ball well on the ground. Defense isn't bad either. So in general, there's good things that's going on with the Colts. I will say this, though. The Saints have a great defense. The Saints have one of the better defenses in the NFL right now, not only statistically, but I just think they look pretty good out there. Derek Carr's been a little bit off, but I think he's going to get some sync at some point, some uniformity with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas and his receiving weapons. And Kamara being back absolutely does help that offense. The Saints are due for a bounce back. They need one after 2 straight losses, and I think they're going to get it against the Colts here. They're going to get this upset over Indianapolis despite being the underdogs. So we're on the same page with the New Orleans Saints, Vince.
Well, what makes me nervous too about the Saints is they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. So, I'm with you. I think they get it done this week, but you just got to hope for them, for their fans' sake, they could kind of stop that bleeding before it gets worse. This was a team started off the season rocking and rolling, and really since then have just kind of hit the skids a little bit. So definitely hoping they can get it back going. 3-4, very salvageable. They went into Gillette earlier this season, won 34-0 against a Bill Belichick team in Gillette Stadium. Hard to do. They pulled it off. So a lot of things going on there, but still at 3-4, the season still very much in front of them. A division that is not very good, as we said. Atlanta 4-3, Tampa Bay 3-3. So it's right there for the Saints if they want to take it.
It is. So we move to the Browns, though, who go on the road to a tough stadium to play in Seattle. And that one's interesting, of course, because I think that's a Seattle team that have they been lights out this year? No, but they're still 4-2. Same record as the Cleveland Browns. They got it done against the Cardinals in a low-scoring affair over this past weekend. And that is one of the most difficult places to play in the NFL, as I mentioned. It is a loud stadium. It's difficult to hear. The way that it just echoes and almost just keeps that noise there bottled into that stadium. The design is beautiful for a fan atmosphere if you're the defense of the Seahawks, because it's tough for an offense out there to communicate. So there's got to be a lot of communication that's going to be, silent for the Browns. They're just going to have to be finding ways to be on the same page offensively, because you're going to expect a loud environment for that one. Oh, and by the way, the Seahawks are also wearing some other alternative uniforms, like the Colts did against the Browns. But the Seahawks are going back to more of their traditional style they had years ago with the gray helmets, and it's more the Kelly green rather than the neon green and that different shade of a lighter blue. I think that's going to look really cool to see them out there on the field with those uniforms. I'm excited to see the throwbacks for the Seahawks going up against the Cleveland Browns in this coming game. So I am looking forward to some of those things. What I'm not looking forward to is that I think the Browns are going to hit some struggles here on the road because of the noise in that stadium, because the Seahawks are a pretty good team. You're going out to the West Coast. I think there's a lot of things going against this team. And then you have the questions that, what are we going to do at the quarterback position, right? Watson's had his injury. Do we want to put him back out there, see what he can do? Or are we going to have to put Watson on IR and then he's out 4 weeks at least to recover? So then we can bring PJ Walker up to the 53, because they're out of elevating him. They don't have any more times that they can elevate him to the game day roster from the practice squad. So you have a couple decisions. It's either, if Watson can't go, it's either DTR plays, or you have to bring Walker up to the 53. And I think that's probably your better choice, is bringing Walker up to the 53. But that means somebody has to go down, or like I said, Watson's got to go to the IR. So then you lock yourself into the pigeonhole of that's 4 weeks. He's got to be out by putting him in an IR spot. So there's a lot that we have questions on, honestly, that we're going to see what happens throughout the course of this week and later going into the weekend. But I'm a little concerned, at least in the factor of what are they going to do roster-wise to make it work out, because I think DTR can't be an option. It has to either be Walker or Watson. It's between those two guys, but it's a matter of, if you decide to go with Walker and not Watson, you might just have to just make the decision to put him on the IR, and that's 4 weeks. So I'm going to say the offensive issues are going to continue, especially if Jerome Ford is out. You're getting even more razor thin at the running back position. Now it's going to be Hunt, Strong, and of course you're going to see Deion Jackson, who's taken plenty of reps for the Colts the past 2 years. Probably have to be the three guys out there, since I expect Ford will be out at least this week, potentially another one. So defense will probably perform well, but I don't think they can do what they did against the Colts to almost single-handedly win that game for the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going with Seattle, unfortunately, 24-14 over Cleveland.
It's funny you mention it too, because this is a rivalry here that as a kid, and how many times on this show, guys, have you heard me say as a kid or as a young man, back when Seattle was in the AFC and To me, it doesn't really seem like it was that long ago. But when they were in the AFC, they would play the Browns a lot. I get excited for this game when it comes around every 4 years. That's how crazy it is, because with the way it's slotted, the Browns will play that NFC West every 4 years. So we know we're going to get the Seahawks again once every 4 years, right? But even that being said, this to me is like, when it does happen, it's kind of like a Christmas Eve. You get that anticipation because it's a team that you don't get to see very often. We talked about them being on what seems like Sunday Night Football all the time. So we get to see them on national TV every now and then, but again, just excitement. So I wanted to say that as a fan before I start breaking down the game. Cole mentioned a great point. It's very tough to go in there and win in front of the 12th man, right? They call it in Seattle, it's so loud, they call it the 12th man. It's unbelievably loud. Just to give you guys a little bit of history, looking back into this, since that stadium was open up there, the Browns have made 2 trips in 18 years, which again should show you, actually 21 years. Holy cow. So the Browns have made 2 trips in about 21 years to that stadium, which again just shows you how seldom we play this team. On the road in 2003, they got destroyed 34-7. That was the year where everything was just up in flames anyways for Cleveland. And then as I'm looking at it here, this was a couple years ago in 2015 with Johnny Manziel. They got destroyed again, 30-13. Their luck going to Seattle over the years has not been good. They have not won in Seattle since the 80s. It's been that long. Okay, now that being said, actually, as I'm looking at this, it's been since 1989 was the last time the Browns won in Seattle. So it was tough in the Kingdome. It's tougher where they play now. Okay, so the history lesson is over. But Cole mentioned a lot of things here. The Browns need to make a decision with Deshaun Watson. Are you going to run him out there as your starter, or are you going to just put him on hold for 4 weeks, let him get rested, and bada boom, bada bing, we're right back to the same situation we were last year, where he would kind of take over week 11. Hopefully the season's not lost by then. A couple things the Browns need to consider now. We talked about it last week, Cole, where we thought this division was wide open. We thought that Pittsburgh might be coming back to the pack. We thought that maybe Baltimore was coming back to the pack. And look what happened last week. Pittsburgh gets another fluke win. They find a way to win, like Pittsburgh always seems to do. And then Baltimore destroys the Lions. So now it's like, you know what? You really can't give up too many of these games. You've lucked out 2 weeks in a row against the 49ers and the Colts that every single bounce went your way. Every single call went your way. You can't continue to rely strictly on that. They're doing the best they can on offense without Nick Chubb and now without Jerome Ford. And it's a shame because I actually think Jerome Ford, if they could get him 10 to 15 touches every single game, he will continue to mature and continue to get better. They don't have that this particular week, and they could really use it. This is not the Legion of Boom defense from Seattle. This is a very beatable defense. The problem again for Cleveland is that they're banged up. We don't know what's going on with Watson, as I just said, and obviously Ford is out. This is the kind of game I want to see Kareem Hunt get 30 touches if possible. And I'm not even joking. Feed him every first down. Throw him some screens if you have to. Whatever you need to do, make Hunt, if he's healthy, make Hunt your primary threat coming into this game. If Watson does play, you're going to take a little bit of pressure off of Watson and his shoulder and his rotator cuff, right? Shorter passes, maybe some screens. Get our guy David Bell in there. Do whatever you need to do to move those chains. The defense, they should be able to light Geno Smith up. Geno Smith has been playing out of his mind the last 2 seasons. But even that being said, I still believe the Browns defense is good enough to go in there and rattle him. I don't think he's any better than a Gardner Minshew, right? So, yeah, Gardner went through 300 yards against the Browns, but still the Browns found a way in the end to stop him. That's what they're going to need to do in this one. Still, that being said, love those receivers on Seattle. Lockett and Metcalf are just nails. Look at that running back you called it 2 years ago in the draft, on that draft show. I'll never forget about that night. You said, hey, watch out for this guy here. So, again, Seattle has so much talent on offense. It's going to be a great matchup, their offense versus the Browns defense. Now, with all that being said, still going to go with Seattle in this one. Couple major reasons the Browns are still in such a major form of flux at this point. Until Deshaun Watson, and I'm going to lead to his grade here in a second, but until Deshaun Watson can come back 100% healthy and then make a run with it and show, hey, Cleveland fans, this is the guy you traded for. This is the 232 million, all that stuff. This is me, right? It's just so hard to believe in anything right now when it comes to the Cleveland Browns at that quarterback position. They've gotten nothing for 2 weeks, nothing out of that position. PJ Walker did a great job this past week not to give the game away, kept them in it. Kudos to him. Hey, and he's now led 2 last-second drives to get his team in field position. You have to respect that as well. So, again, all that being said, still going to go with Seattle. But if they're going to go with PJ Walker one more week, I agree with Cole. I think it might be time to put Watson on IR and just call this a day for 4 weeks. Get DTR some repetitions at backup quarterback. Learn, hold that clipboard, sit in those meetings, whatever he has to do. But I think decision time's coming up pretty soon on that. Now, I posed the question in the beginning of the night. My answer is C-. And I'll tell you why when it comes to Deshaun Watson. The reason why I see a C- is despite the 6-4 record, he had nothing to do with this past week. He played 1 possession or two or three possessions. That was it. Look back at that game last year against the Houston Texans in which they won. He had nothing to do with that. His first game back, we all know what happened. I just throwing the ball on the ground. It was atrocious. So really, when you really kind of look at it, you could actually say 4-4 as a starter for the Browns. And what games did he honestly affect? Well, again, I would say one more time, that huge half in Washington last year with 3 touchdown passes. And then again, earlier this season, he looked really good against Tennessee. So really, out of those 6 wins, you could say responsible for 2. The 4 losses, he looked awful in all 4 of those losses. So a lot to think about there. The 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions are what they are. Again, I'll say it again, that's not bad. You mix in 2 rushing touchdowns, and he's sitting at 13 touchdowns total as a player with 8 interceptions. So that part doesn't bug me too much. Long story short with Watson, I feel as though, me and Cole had given you guys who have watched this show the last 4 years, we've talked about him so many times over the last 4 seasons. I like Deshaun Watson. I think at his peak, when he's 100%, he could easily be a top 10 quarterback, if not like a top 6 quarterback. He's that doggone good. The problem is we haven't seen that since 2020. I look at the calendar here on my laptop as I look straight ahead. It's October 24, 2023, guys. It's now or never. So when, if, maybe he comes back healthy this season, he's got to ball out, or this is looking real bad. So for now, I'll go ahead and say C-.
Well, I know that everybody out there wants me to say F, right? All these posts on social media, everybody's freaking out. They're all losing their minds, saying, way too much money spent, waste money, same old Browns, whatever. I don't care. Again, the reason I roll my eyes when you gave the number of the contract before is we've had the conversation. I don't care how much he's getting, right? These people are masters with salary caps, practically non-existent. These geniuses, these wizards with calculators, they manage to restructure contracts all the time. They make things work. So I don't care what an owner wants to pay them, right? As long as they can go out there and they can do their job. Now, obviously, the suspension was something that we all knew was going to be a thing. We have to get past that. So we knew at the same time, as much as everybody wants to attribute it to rust, and certainly there was some rust for Watson, the main thing was that he was playing in Jacoby Brissett's system. Watson and Brissett, their style of games, the way they play quarterback is different. Brissett is a huge play action guy under center, and I think that's how he succeeds. Really ground and pound type of player. And Watson wants to air it out of pistol, shotgun, not as much under center. And I think they've taken some strides in the direction to get it that way. But I thought they would have tried to really put the offense and structure it around how Watson likes to play, maybe even more than what we have seen so far this year for him. But of course, it's been limited on what we've seen. So I could really make people mad and give a higher grade. But when you pose the question, first thing that comes to my mind is C. So interesting enough that you said C-. Okay. I'm right in the middle. I'm indifferent on this. I know where his ceiling is. I know where he can go. I know where his talent is, what he can do. We saw the glimpse of that against Tennessee where it's like, okay, this is a glimpse of the old guy, maybe not to the same capacity, right? But he doesn't have to put up the same gaudy numbers he did in Houston. reason he put up such gaudy numbers in Houston was partially because their line was so bad that they couldn't move the football on the ground. They had to pass constantly throughout the game. Like, it felt like he was throwing 40, 50 times a game. He had to do it, and he was running for his life. Now you have an offensive line that can actually clear out some holes, let your run game do well, not only when it was with Chubb, right? And you really want to lean on Chubb, but Ford's played well. Hunt's played well coming back. Those guys have played well, so you want to still run the ball. So you don't need him to the same capacity that Houston need him, but you need him to be good enough. We saw the flash of that with Tennessee. We've seen some flashes of it throughout some other games. Maybe not full games like the Tennessee one, but I've seen the glimpses there. As for some of the things that have been bad, right? It's a matter of you have to hope that he's going to get into a rhythm, right? But when he's been out with some injuries, right? I feel like there's a lot of things that have gone against him where he hasn't been able to find a rhythm. At some point, you need him to be in there and have a stretch of a couple games where he's playing and playing well to get that rhythm. And I think he needs that first spark of that. But you'd hope after the Tennessee game that it would happen. Well, of course, then they go up against the Ravens, and then, of course, he takes the hit in the shoulder, and he wasn't great in that game, right? So just things didn't go well there. In general, I just want to find that rhythm, and we haven't found it. Everybody's all upset about him making all that money, saying, he's soft and doesn't want to be out there and play, and I totally disagree. Somebody doesn't stand over there on the sideline holding the helmet for so long, not begging to go into the game, right? Somebody who knew they were going to be out or didn't want to be out there, they go, they slam that helmet down or something, they put it away, and they grab a ball cap, right? And they're just hanging out on the sideline. Guy was up close to Stefanski for a while holding that helmet, and you could tell he wanted to go in. They were just choosing not to do it. And I understand why they chose not to do it. I think they felt this is a game that we can win without you in here and playing at full capacity. The Colts, they're okay, but we can put Walker out there and we can get enough done. And defensively, we can do enough. We can rally as a team. And we don't want to further an injury because everybody's like, oh, thought that might have been a concussion because when he got hit, his head whipped back and hit the ground. Thankfully, it wasn't that. But everybody's like, his shoulder wasn't hit. Well, when he falls on the ground and whips back, you see that right shoulder at the same time as his head bounces off the ground. It kind of hits when it comes back and bounces. And not only does it bounce, he's just trying to protect his fall by putting his right hand down. An instinct, okay? Not a good thing because of the injury, but he certainly tried to put his hand down to brace it, okay? Didn't maybe have full force there, but still it was enough that it probably jammed it up a little bit, okay? He could certainly lift his arm up, but I'm sure it was already going to take even more off the velocity, cause issues, and you already saw on the throw where he was trying to find Goodwin down the field. He couldn't lead him. It was just going straight to Goodwin's chest because the velocity wasn't there, and that was even before that hit. So I'm okay with them not playing them. My concern, though, is with this, is that I want him to be at full health. And I think him at full health gives you a chance to win games. And so my hope is, I'm thinking the IR might end up just being the best route. I know they took some time, tried to be cautious, but I think maybe just putting him on the IR for 4 weeks. Fingers crossed the defense can play well enough. PJ Walker, he's had some bad moments, but I'll tell you what, when it counts, when you need him, he stepped up. He did it against the Niners towards the end of the game, and then he did against the Colts. He had some big throws there in the latter stages. The one he got hit from behind. At the same time as he's getting hit from behind, he puts a beautiful ball out to the far sideline, just over the outstretched arm of the defensive back, in front of the other one, dropping it in on Elijah Moore. And that was probably the play of the game offensively. Now, obviously, we can say Myles Garrett, some of the plays he had defensively, crucial, right? Also, the blocked field goal, huge. But offensively, that throw to Elijah Moore sparked that drive, gave them a chance to go down the field and win it, and they did. So PJ Walker, I think, is good enough to, as he keeps getting settled in with this team, that I think he can actually do enough to at least help you out. So I think at this point, just put Watson on the IR, take a couple more weeks of letting him rest. Hopefully then he can get his velocity up, can fully be healed, and fingers crossed he's good to go right around that week 11, week 12 point. And you got to hope that you win some winnable games coming up after the Seahawks game with Walker. But I think you just have to take Walker up to the 53. And that's the move you have to make, because I like what they have on the roster right now. And if you take DTR down to the practice squad, somebody's going to probably come lurking and try to scoop him up out of hopes that he becomes something good in the future. So you can't run the risk. I think you just have to elevate Walker and Watson to the IR, as I mentioned before. But I'm going with C. Again, I'm stuck in the middle here.
Well, time will tell, as we always say. Certainly not an easy task for whoever plays quarterback this coming week in Seattle. No doubt about it. Cole, I'll tell you what, it's been fun talking about the Browns this week, but I want to remind our fans again to check out our high school football preview show for the playoffs. We filmed it a little bit earlier this week right here on YouTube. Myself, Cole McDaniel, Dom Clary, and Brandon Sorter-Penner break down round one of the playoffs, along with some good questions as well. Had a lot of fun shooting that last night with you guys. So we'll remind the fans again, check that out while you're sitting here on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Make sure you take a look at that. Of course, playoff football coming up here. You want to check out all the coverage, make sure to go to keonsports.com. Highlight videos as well will be up on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure you do so. Of course, you can turn notifications on as well for whenever we go live. Of course, videos go up as well. You get a little notification. So make sure you do that as well if you are a huge supporter of Keon Sports and want to see what's going on for the rest of this football season. Vince, any final thoughts?
No, not really. I mean, this is, we talked about it a little bit at the top of the show, being tied. This is a week. I don't think we're going to have a lot of games different. We'll see. But it's, right around Halloween, we always seem to, that kind of is that 1 mile marker there, right? So we have that mile marker. Thanksgiving, always kind of based on the holidays and state championships. So having some fun. Can't believe it's week 8, but looking forward to it.
Safe to say, I'm going to guess we have 3 or less games different this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than 3. So we can find out, of course, in the article on the website, keonsports.com. For myself, Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, again, a shout out to Climate Tech, our sponsor. Big thanks to them, as always. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy football this upcoming weekend.
Climate Tech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products. We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water. We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation. Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction. When you hire Climate Tech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.